A group of people who are very important because there is a focus today in reducing the cost of healthcare through reuse of equipments, devices which are essentially labeled as single use and hence by law are not reusable. Certain equipments which we do reuse, however, the scientific proof, the burden of proof lies on us to prove that they are as effective as they were. There is this whole concept of microbiological safety, of not getting contaminated. Please also understand that today we are hardly 30 years since we have discovered HIV. There are still many viruses that we don't know of, which will get discovered in 2050, in 2070, and probably samples of blood found from today will still have an impact and we'll probably discover those viruses at that point in time. There's a need to comply in these areas. There's a need to come up with some solutions in this. And therefore, I'm going to invite for the keynote address Dr. Barun Naik, who is an ophthalmologist in Mumbai, Secretary General of the All India Ophthalmological Society, practicing at the Hinduja Hospital. I'm also going to request Dr. Camilla Rodriguez, a teacher of mine, to come up, please, who is at Hinduja Hospital as a consultant microbiologist. Advocate Milind Antani from the Desai Associates, Dr. Sunil Khetarpal, and Dr. Sudeep Shah, who is a surgeon and also works at the PD Hinduja National Hospital. I hope there are enough chairs. I'm ready to get up. I'm also going to request Dr. Yogesh Shah to join us at some point in time later as we keep moving, sir. And Mr. Ashok Grover. So, sir, keynote address. So all of us are aware of what we are discussing, right? We are discussing the reusable catheters, the guide wires. There are many other things that are supposed to be single use but are reused by us in our endeavor to cut costs. So we have an ophthalmologist, we have a surgeon, we have an advocate, we have a CEO, and we have a very eminent microbiologist. Over to you, sir, 5 minutes if we can. Give us a gist of what you're talking about, the gist of the problem.
Okay, good afternoon, friends. I think this is not fair, that reduction of time. For the last, no, anyway, I'm not going to take more than 5 minutes, that is true. But this is not fair for the earlier sessions, you gave enough time, whatever is there, and the later session, always it happens, and I'm always against this.
Dr. Naik, 10 minutes, take your time.
Yeah, okay, no, I'll not.
I give my time to you.
Anyway, so to provide quality, it has been said enough number of times. And basically, there are two types of instruments we use. One is category 1, multiple use, and category 2, single use. Of late, the trend is shifting of many items from category 1 to category 2. And one of the reasons is that because there is no regulation, the companies don't have to take permission from the approval from the FDA for shifting to this. So that is one. And in the process, company earns a lot because that is to their favor. And also because if they have done this, then legally we are bound not to use second time. And then they start creating hue and cry and start highlighting the problems of reuse. And the third, that in Western world, because the reprocessing is such a costly affair that sometimes they prefer that, okay, throw it away, that will be cheaper or more economical than reusing it. So those are the background. Probably, I don't know whether in India this is really possible or not. So why this discussion? Because perception of single-use item as perfect because we feel that it is perfect because it is fresh, but it increases the cost. Can developing countries also follow the practice of developed countries? This is what we have to consider. And manufacturers are more pleased with single-use product because that is obvious reasons. There is nothing, no doubt about it. What do we look whenever we are using an instrument or any equipment or any device? What is the quality, function, or performance? And second part, the sterility part. As a medical practitioner, because if we just start looking at both the aspects, there are certain items which we know that definitely it can be reused without compromising the quality. I am sure even the research has proven that out of all those devices which are labeled as single-use devices, about 2% of them can be reused. But there are many items in this 2% which are really costly items and which should be reused if possible. And whether instruments can be re-sterilized. But the problem is that reluctantly we have to refrain from reuse of single-use items because Nobody wants to take up the responsibility. Suppose if I use it and something happens, my lawyer friend will next day will go to the court and stand against me, and he will say, doctor, do you know this, you have used this device, have you seen the package? What was written there? Single-use item. Have you used this first time? No, I have used second time. Now, so whether the problem of the patient was related to this or not, but it will be attributed to this, that because I have used it second times, so any problem occurring because of any problem occurring to the patient is because of this. It is done in good faith without any malified intention. That is, I am sure no medical practitioner will do anything with intention that I am going to harm the patient. Fear of litigation, as I already elaborated, and legislation does not protect the user. That is the key factor. Now, just one point I want to explain, that's just simple, one example I want to give, that here, if you see, instead of there where the circle is made, 2 written and a cross. This indicates, just this symbol means you cannot use it second time. Now, my question is, why you can't use this instrument second time? Just because the company has labeled it as single use? Or, you see, the bottom one is the diamond knife. The top one is the disposable knife. Now, if the performance, if I am the one who is using it, and I can certify that the performance is perfect even the second, third, fourth time, then why can't we use it? The second question I said about the sterility part. In that sterility part, now I asked my microbiology department, and the first question was, I knew that this answer is going to come. No, you cannot use it because there is hollow tube and the moving part inside, because I'll just show you on the next video. And the lower one, but then my question to the microbiologist is, lower one also has got a hollow part, but it's a diamond knife. It costs more than ₹1 lakh, therefore I cannot throw it away, and it can be sterilized. So this question means some law has to protect us. Now, just look at this. This is the diamond knife. This also has got hollow part. It can be moved. There is something which is tube, which is moving in and out. That is but it can be re-sterilized because company has not labeled it as single-use item. But as against this is the knife, which is company labeled it as single-use item. Therefore, just because it's providing a hood to protect the tip, it cannot be reused. So I don't know, where are we going? So what do we need? We all want well-being of the patient. There is no doubt about it. Cost cutting includes reuse of certain items without compromising the quality. Legislation from government to protect. So basically, we want some legislation from the government, as in Western country, so that we are protected. Government agencies to study the matter on high priority. Sensible legislation from the government in order to facilitate this. It will result in huge national saving, and also it will be environment friendly because it will, in US itself, about 2 million tons of waste product is dumped into the ground from the operation theater. So if we are using, again, we shift towards that everything is single-use item, then we will also create lot of waste which we have to deal with, which is not biodegradable. And this is probably a very good article written in this. Probably I recommend that all of you must read this at least to get some idea about what is the situation today. Thank you. I think still I have not taken more than 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I'm going to now request Dr. Camilla to please speak on this, because I think with over 30 years of experience, Dr. Camilla is the right person to opine on the safety aspect of this.
I'm actually going to just take 2 minutes, promise you. The issue here is really contentious. We've talked about single-use devices. The ones who want to use them will say that it's great, it's huge cost savings, and really we haven't seen any side effects. The ones who propose against it would discuss sterility issues, would discuss the intricacies, the complexities of these equipments that are sophisticated today. If you look at, Barunesh showed a simple diamond knife, but we have instruments that are so complex, they have electronic gadgetry within, and sterilization of this is really not adequate. From the medical perspective, there are also issues of functionality. If you continue to use them, are you sort of compromising their function? Again, the other issues of, these disinfectants that we use could be actually harmful to the patient. Those are the medical issues. And with that, the US FDA in 2000 actually came up with a law, unprecedented actually, where they said that, you can actually reuse single-use devices provided you stick to these stringent guidelines and outsource it, whether it's going to be your hospital or whether it's a third-party reprocessing and repackaging unit. Over the last 15 years, not a single US hospital today has managed to sort of abide by those stringent laws of reuse, because the US FDA is really a strict regulatory body. And today, if any reuse is occurring in the US, it is through third-party processing. The point I want to submit to you, since this is we're discussing with the lawyers, is that it is like Barun showed you. It's 2 with a line across it. You can't use it. And because you can't use it the second time. 2 means 2 and a line across. You cannot take consent from a patient, because the patient is going to say, but doctor, how can I sign for this, even if it's going to be at a lower cost? That is unethical, that you put a poor patient at a dilemma when you say, it's going to be 1/5 the rate, because this has been reused 5 times, when actually that is an unethical act. And I'm going to submit to you a sad situation that in India, in India we're sort of way behind the US. We don't have any expertise in hospitals to reuse these devices. We don't have any third-party reprocessing companies. We don't have any laws to address this issue. Tomorrow a patient can come and sue me and say, I got an infection, it's probably because of single-use devices that you re-sterilized. Show me how you showed that it was sterile. I have nothing to show, because I did it in good interest of the patient. And I'm going to end by just talking about 2 examples. One is coronary angioplasty is being done rampantly because in 1997, the Indian Cardiac Association allowed reuse of coronary catheters with guidelines on how to sterilize it. Today, in 2014, we at Hinduja Hospital actually diagnosed 5 patients who had for the lawyers just need to know that it was a very indolent, very innocuous infection, apparently. But the sad thing is, these were all parents of doctors and lawyers. And the truth is that it was known as non-tuberculous mycobacteria, which cannot be actually sterilized adequately in these coronary reused catheters. They all are dead today. That's one point. The second point is that all of us take injections from time to time. These injections are from disposable syringes. Tomorrow, I would submit to you, what if we reused those disposable syringes? Wouldn't you be horrified? How can they do that to us? Reusing those disposable syringes, but we're talking about the same thing. So the solution here, it's hugely complex. We have to bring in legislation by which the companies take off that 2 across. Otherwise, there's nothing we can do. Even the government cannot help us. There's no question about it. The companies are in it for the big money. They want to reuse and reuse so that they don't want it to be reused. They want it to be reused once so that they make money. And they've coolly dispensed with the ones that can be adequately sterilized. So we need to ask, as a country, we need to say, you're bringing reuse devices and you either cut your rates rock bottom, or you take off that label. Or you provide for sterilization of this, be the third-party processing. And that's my view on that. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I'd just like to add one particular element which probably didn't come out. What came out was the very ethical, the very coherent view. And I know for a fact that the hospital these 2 persons are from, till they were reusing, did actually take a consent on certain reuse. I'm talking about the mass of hospitals, and we all identify with these people who essentially reuse in order to profiteer. There are people who multiply use guide wires and catheters because they want to make money. And that is also a problem which needs to get addressed. So while we are talking about the greatness of reducing cost to the patient, let's also understand that there is a huge bulk of people in the country. And I'd probably want Dr. Khetrapal's view on this. How do you actually justify this where people don't pass on the cost benefit to the patient? When you use it 5 times, the whole idea is you're going to bill the patient at 20, let's say 25% of the actual cost to cover and defray some cost of sterilization. Do you believe that in our country everything is merely done with a cost reduction motive, or is there a profiteering motive? And I don't want to sound like, like a debate, but the thing is that this is relevant.
I think the crux of the matter is the, the quality and safety of patient care. We are all talking of the ultimate end result should be the patient should get quality care. At times, see, there are companies, they are recommending certain items to be used for a particular number of times, or certain items to be used only once. But sometimes the hospital or the end users, they go overboard by using the more number of times than the prescribed times, or the item which is to be used single time, they go it for multiple use. See, it was a very relevant question which you have asked. It is either for the profiteering or, see, what I would like to say is cost, as he's mentioned that something which was costing about 1 lakh. So what is the harm if he feels that, it can be used again, or if the end user is comfortable in using that, and if it will not compromise with the quality of care of the patient. So what is the harm using it? What is the harm, reusing it? That is the question now. See, it is not basically to earn profits all the time. It is not to earn the profit. It is basically the hospital has to keep in mind so many factors. The hospital has to see that if it can be used multiple number of times, and if the patient is ultimately going to be benefited, and if they have an experience of using it without any harm to the patient, then why not to use it? So profit is one aspect. It is there in the mind of the hospital administrators or the hospitals, but at the same time, the hospital also would not like that the quality and safety of care is compromised. I'm
very grateful to Dr. Kamala for having actually candidly voiced the fact about the NTM, the non-tuberculous mycobacteria that we see. Our problem is that we are very comfortable taking on this responsibility ourselves with the view that nothing will happen. The question is, who is to certify that something will happen? Why don't we allow the legislative arm of our society take this responsibility, and let's actually drive it home. As ma'am said, if there has to be a reprocessing unit and that cost has to be passed on to the patient, it will still be cheaper than rupees 100. It might not be 25, it might go to 40 or 50, but it will still be cheaper than the 100. At some stage, we don't know. I would not say that there is no harm. I would just add the words, we don't know what harm there is. And I'm going to ask Dr. Shah, sir, you're a surgeon. You reuse the reusables. Sometimes surgeons reuse the non-reusables and the single-use devices. How often, what are your views on this?
Right. So, you know that you've heard our microbiologists' very clear views on this. Interestingly, we are guided by something called the NABH, as you are aware, which is our accreditation body for all hospitals in our country. The NABH allows the reuse of single-use devices. Can I
just answer that so that Dr. Rana has just probably left? The NABH does not say that you can reuse. It says you must have a policy on reuse.
Yes.
A policy may also mean a total negation.
Yes, but it also means that you can.
Agreed.
Right.
Agreed.
So it doesn't say that you cannot. Right. So that's a very important point. So as long as we have a policy for reuse, the accreditation body in our country will allow you to reuse. And that is what we are holding forth, to fight against the sheer greed of the instrument manufacturers. Otherwise, it is impossible to provide low-quality healthcare in our country. For example, a harmonic scalpel in an appendectomy, which I'll use for 1 minute, will cost 40,000 rupees, which will be maybe the same as what the patient is paying for the rest of the whole procedure for the hospital. So it is very easy to say that if we have a law in the US which says that these are the guidelines, if we can follow exactly the same guidelines in our country, we should also be able to reuse the single-use device so that the patients can be benefited. We must also remember that most of the NTMs that we see, and as a surgeon, I'm referred a lot of NTMs by Dr. Soman, who has a large referral base of this. Most of them come not from the single-use device. They also come from badly sterilized, permitted reusable stainless steel devices which are put in Sidex and not been autoclaved. So if you want to mismanage anything in our country, everything can be mismanaged. So let us not blame the reuse of single-use devices. In fact, if you legalize and have legislation, the same way sexually transmitted disease in Amsterdam is regulated because the workers responsible have their health checked HIV, HbSAg, HCV is looked into, and this is all regulated, the incidence of that has fallen in the country because it is all legislated. If you're allowed to have rampant misuse and don't legislate it, you're going to have far more infection, and it is impossible in this country to monitor and stop people from reusing single-use devices. And I can see Dr. Vashisht, who is the president of our society, nodding emphatically in the front row, and I think I have support from almost every member of the society.
Well, thank you for that. I'm going to open the house on this one because this is a really contentious issue. Sir.
Dr. Bhagwat, anesthetist from Hindu Hospital. So my colleagues are there expressing their views. A simple small query to Dr. Kamila Rodriguez. Like I have a best Ambu phagoscope which our hospital can buy. It costs 3.5 lakhs rupees or 5 lakhs rupees. A reusable stilette which we use costs 25,000 rupees. If I go to a patient saying that this 25,000 I can use 25 times without compromising quality and the sterility, and you will be charged only 1,000 rupees. So the ethics doesn't come into, I am sharing with my, and then I am taking an informed consent. Is there something wrong? Because if the person may opt to use 25,000 worth single catheter, or he may say, okay, fine, if the cost is going to come down to 1,000 rupees, I'm ready for that. So see, ultimately the risk, you are referring to the consent, ultimately that person is getting under the knife and risking his life. We are giving the honors to him to decide whether he wants to undergo and he wants to choose which.
Before Dr. Kamila answers, sir, I'd like to here quantify two things. And
Yes.
I'm doing this both in my capacity of NABH SSI and moderator. One is you said informed consent.
Yes.
You as a person, and I assume as an anesthesiologist, you'd probably be signing your own consent or your registrar or somebody. As an anesthesiologist, how well are you informed about the risks, benefits and alternatives about reuse of this particular device? One. And if you are not informed, if the answer is no, how are you going to communicate this to your patient? How are you what are you documenting as the risks, benefits and alternatives if you yourself don't know? That's
No, if my biomedical engineer who is there in-house is certifying this is a good quality product even after reuse, and our microbiology department is saying it's nicely sterilized, I am free to tell to him that it's equally good, it's equally effective, isn't it?
Dr. Bapat, no matter what I say, how nicely sterilized it is, if it is written 2 and not 1, the lawyers in this room will say, how can you do it? That's the issue. If it is written 2 and across, it cannot be reused. The manufacturer is saying it can't be. We are no one to say we've sterilized it till the cows come home. There's nothing we can squeeze out of it. Till that 2 with a cross is removed, every lawyer in this room will say, sorry, Dr.
No,
Bapat, I can't help you.
as a matter of NABH policy, we have our own protocols, we formulate our own protocols that we share with the patient that in order to cut the cost for you, we are indigently following this process.
No.
Sir, are you aware that in a court of law, your consent also can be...
Yes.
Reduce cost, you gave him the knowledge. It was a direct financial benefit. It was not a very...
Just a couple of points. See, I have a car parked outside. Tomorrow, the manufacturer of the car will put a 2 and a line across saying I can only drive the car once. Am I going to tolerate this nonsense from them? That is the first point.
Yeah.
So we need to have exactly what is done in the US, legislation to say that we recognize that the manufacturer is there to make money, unlike a professional who is there to earn money by doing good for the patient. We have to distinguish between the two. So we have to stand up and say that this is nonsense, and the legal authorities should support us in doing this. The CDSCO has no policy for or against single-use devices. That's the first point. The second point is that consent, unfortunately, in the wisdom of the NABH, they have brought this issue in, that if you're reusing single-use devices, one must take consent. The FDA in the US have very clearly stated that it is not for the doctor or the patient to decide. It is very simple that as long as the process is such that the instrument is as good as the day it was manufactured, there is no need to take consent to reuse a single-use device. So we must also request the NABH to take consent away, because there is no way that a patient or an average clinician not trained in the complexities of biomedical engineering or microbiology can assess utility of reused devices.
There in the 4th edition. It's out.
Thank you.
But just ask the lawyers, what do they say for their two?
Yeah, so I'd like to know from our advocate colleagues. Yes. Sorry, my advocate colleague.
Answer is yes and no. I tell you why. Why I'm saying yes and no. If a product comes with a label mentioning to and cut, means it cannot be used again, period. That is, I totally agree with you. That doesn't prevent somebody to reuse it unless and until that doctor or a hospital or a user follows certain stipulated guidelines / norms, conditions, blah, 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 as prescribed under law by the government, which makes that person, I'm coming to that, that's why I said yes and no, makes them able to use that again, ultimately which should benefit the patient, provided hospital is going to charge half. I'm parking that thing again, that if you are using it again, you may be charging first time with lakh rupees, second time also with lakh rupees. You are not going to charge 50%, which is out of the theme of the debate. I don't want to touch upon that. But point is, it can be done under a law, which is not going to be an easy job. Most of the devices which are coming are what he mentioned are notified devices, which are under Drugs and Cosmetic Act. That is number one. My biggest worry, being a lawyer, and I think Mahinder will agree with me, you take consent or don't consent, it will come to liability. Suppose a patient who has given a consent that I hereby consent you to use reusable or reusing this particular device, and suppose something goes wrong to that patient, informed consent would be there. It goes into the product liability issues. And when it comes to product liability issue, because doctor is not going to say, I have not killed this patient, it is a device because I used it again. Then the owners would move on multiple fronts that, okay, it was not sterilized properly. I agree with you, there was some contamination. So person who sterilized it is at fault. No, it was everything. It was mainly the problem with the company. Company has to become on the board when such a law is, because otherwise company will shy away. I clearly mentioned, I know there could be various reasons for putting to and slash. Company might have vested interest of having two devices when one device can be used. So company is going to shy away. That I have clearly mentioned, I am a CE certified, I clearly mentioned cannot be used again. Still you have used it. So you have violated the norms of the product as prescribed by me. So manufacturer, 80% of that, 60 to 70% of the certain devices are imported in India today. In fact, on July 10th or 8th, there was an office memorandum. Of course, it was more of a refurbished devices, which clearly prohibited import of refurbished devices more than 3 years in India. And there was lots of hue and cry by doctors and hospitals. And on 25th August, that previous office memorandum was withdrawn. So there is a possibility of refurbished device is a different ballgame than reuse. But point is, why I said yes and no. No, yes, because company has said you can't use it, period. Company will shy away from all the liabilities. In a case, when I am a lawyer, I want to ring fence doctor or a hospital who is my client from a liability point of view. It can be 11 crores, it can be 50 crores, it can be 100 crores also. It can go to that level, we are in that situation. Number two, if you want to use it, and government will do only if they are convinced that reusing a particular device in such a situation will lead to reduction in the cost. They may ask for certain along with various norms whether the cost will reduce or not. And that process is not going to be very easy. US legislation has come after 6 years of exercise. And the norms which would come would not be very easy to follow. It is not just going ETO sterilization, you are done. It's not going to be that way. So it's a both ways, but definitely it's a good intention, provided healthcare cost is going to reduce by reusing it again.
Thank you very much. I'm going to close this conversation on the simple fact that we all agree that if we have to continue doing it, we can't keep on looking over our backs all the time. As surgeons, as microbiologists, as infection control practitioners, if all the time we are constantly going to be thinking, "Hi, pakade gaye to kya?" It is better to drive for legislation. It is better to bring the companies to the table. And those are some of the things. Essentially, we all look at reducing the cost of healthcare through many, many initiatives. And we must act in tandem with both the regulator, the government, as well as the device companies. Because finally, it should not be at some point in time in our country the surgeon's job to keep thinking about the costs. I think the costs, there are enough people to think about. They should not be worried whether my patient will get an infection or no, because this is a reused device. I think on that, I'm going to hand over the microphone back to Advocate Bajpai for the closing remarks.
Just till that time, what to do, because this is now...
Yeah, so till that time, sir, till the time we continue doing what we always have done. We do what we think is right, which is generally wrong, and we have been doing it all this time, and which is accepted legally wrong today. Reuse of single-use. Let me give a simple example. When you reuse, this was told to me by a cardiologist of eminence. When you reuse a balloon, okay, you essentially have to go in with a larger French aperture into the groin, which is not a very nice thing. You're putting a larger hole in your patient. Now, these are the sort of things that do come along with the baggage of reuse. Non-tuberculous mycobacteria. I think we had a spate of cases even in Pune about a decade and a half ago. I think these are all the problems, and unfortunately, we do not know how to deal with some of these issues because we don't have, the drugs are also being rampantly abused. So till then, I think we'll just have to continue as we are, sir. Dr. Ture.
And liability is something.
I think the basic mentality, our mentality for all these generations as doctors, which I tell in all my talks, stop acting God.
Exactly.
Stop acting God. Unless you are protected by the law, please do not do anything just because you are, no doubt, you have good intentions, but nobody, once there is a complication, nobody looks at your intentions. It is, so stop acting God. Do what the law tells you. One use, period.
Then I will suggest, because you've been in the committee of NABH standard also, then withdraw that thing.
Sir, the reason it was put in there, and I was part of the third edition also, the reason it was put in there was earlier people used to do it without a policy. They used to hide it away during NABH days, which is more counterproductive. It is better to rationalize something, even if it is illegal, and look at it through the eyes of the microbiologist, so that at least you know that whatever is going through some process. By the way, for your information, all government bodies are on the board of NABH, and everybody is supposed to have looked at these standards, including the Medical Council of India, the Indian Nursing Council, and many, many other such bodies. So I will leave it to those esteemed people to have opined 3 years back and again now, but essentially it's not going to move away because it is for the safety of the patient. Imagine if people subjected to insufficient sterilization or just some side X and then it goes back. That would have been worse. At least what we are asking for is a policy. ETO, SIDEX are different mechanisms, whatever that is. Yeah, I'm speaking merely as a moderator right now. I think what is going on, till the law does not wake up and recognize that this is a problem in the country, at some stage a PIL will come in and we will all be shaken to our roots. So at that stage, let me also tell you, just like Dr. Devi Shetty said, this is going to cost the country's healthcare system heavy. We are going to go so ballistically expensive, we're going to become another US and we'll start sending our patients to Sri Lanka. That is also going to happen at some stage, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, I think on an optimistic note that all of you have done your job and we've all tried to do our job of nation building today. I look forward to the National Convention of Medicine and Law 2016 to bring more light to us poor medical souls and to keep helping us to help the law to come better. And I'm going to hand over back to my colleague for ending the sessions. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your time and attention.